99 people out of 100 don't need an agency to do this for them. Like they can make their own relationship list. They can go take care of their 1 or 2 employees or clients or key relationships. Like I give away in the book, our whole playbook, our whole recipe on how to do this. Because my hope is that millions of leaders will go do this on their own. Like they'll go be more generous with their relationships. They'll grow their companies and then they'll be more generous in their other parts of their life. And 1 million leaders to be more generous and more thoughtful and more empathetic, that could impact 1 billion people based upon employees and suppliers and clients.
Welcome to today's episode of Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. And I have a really amazing guest for you today. This podcast is for you if you've ever gotten a holiday gift. What is it? That fruit pie thing that nobody likes, that nobody wants. Or if you've gotten that random card or email on your birthday from that you're a client of, oh, wishing you a happy birthday. Here's a 5% off on something that you really don't want. This podcast is for you. So today, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our guest who has changed the landscape on gift giving. Allow me to welcome John Ruhlin, the founder and the author of Giftology. Welcome, John.
Hey, Patty, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
You're welcome. We are going to have so much fun. So much fun. Okay. So John, before we go any further, I have to ask you this question. When I think this is so not fair, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
By the way,
when I think of gift giving, I think of women. Like I know a lot of men, like the joke is during the holidays, what the wife has her list of gift giving, and it's 10 pages long. And the guy's list is his wife. That's one gift.
Yeah.
So how did a macho guy like you get into gift giving?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Well, what I would say is, even myself, my love language is in gifting. In business specifically, you know, these high-powered executives, none of them care about gifts. They're not waking up at 4 a.m. to do their miracle morning thinking about their gifting strategy. But what they do wake up thinking about is
unless it's the morning of Valentine's Day,
maybe Valentine's Day or their anniversary or Christmas. But what they do care about, they do wake up thinking about is a deal closing or a deal, like somebody opening a door to refer them an opportunity to close a deal, or an employee leaving, a key executive or a key sales rep, or recruiting a key executive to their team. They think about relationships. And so the reason that like a goat milking farm kid started thinking about gifts is I didn't want to be poor anymore.
Wait, whoa, slow down. A goat milking farm kid. Is that how you're describing yourself?
That's what I grew up in Ohio on 47 acres milking goats every morning. That was my deal.
That's a goat milking. That's a goat milk. I saw some hay in your hair. Okay.
Yeah. Some crap on my boots. I was the funky.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. I was the kid that showed up at school smelling a little funky. You know, you wake up at 6 a.m. every day to smell goats. I wasn't the kid wearing the Jordans. You know, we couldn't afford, anything new. But when you grow up poor, you want to not be poor anymore. So I was very motivated. And so I started hanging out with different people that were successful. And one of them was a rainmaking law firm owner. It was my girlfriend's dad. He was an attorney on this big law firm.
Now, excuse me. Now, how old are you about now?
I'm 20. So I'm in college.
You're 20. Okay.
Yeah, I'm 20 at the time. I'm going to go to med school because I don't want to be poor. And I got straight A's all through school because I was like, I don't want to milk another goat. I don't want to hoe another row of corn. I don't want to split any more wood to heat our house. Like I hated blue collar, like I hated manual labor. I just was tired of it.
Right. And having said that, for anyone blue collar listening, I think we can all agree that farmers are probably the hardest working people on the planet. Like there's no day off, right?
Well, two things. One is my wife now of 14 years, her family farms 5,000 acres and we just bought 40 acres and I have 16 chickens. So I've gone back to my roots of like
full circle,
like manual labor, working the land, mowing the grass, running the chainsaws. But when you grow
so John,
up
I'll tell you something funny about that too. So where I grew up, I think we can all tell this isn't the King's English, right? So when I grew up in Brooklyn, everyone couldn't wait to get the hell out. Now you can't afford to live there.
Isn't that weird? Things like Well, it's like
Yep.
bourbon in the 70s, nobody drank bourbon. Like bourbon was like a poor man's drink. And and now it's like Pappy and all these different things. It's like the high class, like people are clamoring over it for $3,000 a bottle. So it's funny what's old is new, new is old. And really gifting is one of those things. Like people say, I don't care about gifts. I'm like, well, do you care about referrals? Like, oh, our 80% of our business comes from word of mouth and referrals and the right centers of influence, financial managers.
Go back to what you were saying. Go back to what you were saying that when I interrupted you with being a goat farmer.
A goat farmer. Yeah.
Hayseed.
The through loop of all of this, when I saw this law firm owner, his way of being, the way he showed up for relationships was generous. Like he would find a deal on noodles, Paul, the law firm owner, he'd find a deal on noodles. He'd buy a semi load of noodles and so 40 grand in noodles.
You said noodles?
Noodle. And like Amish noodles.
NOODLES.
Yeah, noodles.
Okay.
He'd buy $40,000 in noodles, and everybody at church the next Sunday would walk away with like a year's supply, not like a bag, a year's supply, like cases. And then as a 20-year-old, I'm like, Paul, like, who does that? Like, that's just dumb. Like, it's crazy. It's ludicrous. Like, I mean, that paid for like a couple semesters of college in my head, right? And he smiled.
I'm sure your future father-in-law appreciated you calling him dumb, but go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't end up marrying his daughter, but that's another story. That's another story. But I saw Paul do this, and I'm like, Paul, why? And he said, I love showing up for people this way. Now, because of that, every deal in town came his way. Everybody spoke well of him. Like he was
hang on, John.
Trusted and top of mind. Yeah.
Time. Did you make that connection? Like you just said a cause and effect. You said because of that, every deal came his way. At the time, were you?
I was noticing. For over the course of, call it 6 months, I just noticed people flock to him. I noticed he did things like handwrote notes every single day, like a stack of them. And I saw like people like reach out to him and be like, they hadn't talked to him in 20 years, but they still love Paul, and they inherited some land, and he was now doing their estate planning. I just start, one of my I don't have very many superpowers, but I can see angles. Like I can see, I'm very good at like looking and connecting dots. And I'm like, super generous, super successful. And I saw the correlations. I saw that like it wasn't a tactical thing for Paul, but because he did all of these things, everybody flocked to him. Like deals, opportunities, people just loved Paul. Like he was always on the tip of somebody's tongue talking about him when he wasn't around. I saw it when I go to a basketball game or the pizza shop or the church or whatever. Right. When Paul wasn't there.
So hang on one second, right? As someone that's into relationships and believes all success is based upon the ability to create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships. Okay. We live in a world today where people will appear to be generous, but they're not authentic. It's not genuine. Yeah. So talk about that with Paul. It sounds like you and I both know people that appear to be generous, and they're anything but, right? Yeah. They're not relational, they're transactional. So just speak about how Paul also personified that, because you're right. What people say about you when you're not in the room is how people think about you.
Is what really matters. Right? I mean, in business, people will say, I run a good financial firm. I run a good insurance company. I run a good, why do I have to work so hard to get employees to come on board? Why do I have to work so hard to get my clients that are using my service, that they're banking with me, they're whatever? Why are they not referring me? And it's because you're just transactional. You're meeting the expectations of what they have for the financial product that you're selling, the insurance, whatever widget you're selling. Like you're meeting expectations, but people don't brag and go out of their way to recruit people into your boat. Like if your employees aren't recruiting their family and friends to come work for your firm, then you have people collecting a paycheck, but you don't have necessarily like active loyalty. When somebody recruits their family and friends to your company, you know that you have their heart. They believe that you care for them and that you're going to care for the people that they care for. And it's not just gifting, it's an overall way of being generous and showing up and caring. And so Paul, a lot of times people will try to mimic this, and they'll give great gifts. But if you're a douchebag that gives great gifts, you're still a douchebag. Right? Like you're just magnifying and putting amplification to what you really are. So like Gary Vaynerchuk and I had this conversation, and is like, if you give something to somebody and you're pissed that you don't get the result that you want, it wasn't a gift. It was a manipulation. Whether that's your wife or your husband, you give a nice gift and then expect something in the bedroom that night. You didn't give a gift. You gave a manipulation. It was a manipulation. A carrot.
It was a carrot.
Yeah. Hey, do this. Now you owe me. And so a lot of times people think, well, I did this. Like, that's not generosity. That's manipulation.
It's keeping score. That's keeping score.
And so most people, like Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, is a great like roadmap. We quote it in our book, Giftology, a lot. And most people think they're givers. They're not. They're matchers. You know, there's givers, matchers, and takers. There's very few people that are really truly givers where you don't keep score. And you did but you can be strategic with your giving. That's the thing that I learned when I read Adam's book is you don't give your pearls to swine. Like, you give to other givers. You try to be strategic with your giving. And if you do that, it multiplies. And that's
what did you say? You don't give your pearls to swines?
Yeah, to swine. Pearls to swine.
I like that. You know, Joe Polish talks about, you know, life gives to the giver, but he also qualifies that with the caveat, but you have to give to the right people. Because I still get caught. I give to the takers know exactly who the givers are. There's no doubt. They do.
You have a bullseye.
Moth to a. And I think, you know, there's a difference between, I had somebody say once, there's real friends and there's veal friends, right? So you're talking about being a real friend and giving the gift. But what do you have to set up prior to the gift giving so you know the giving is strategic?
Yeah, well, I think that understanding the psychology of who you're building a relationship with matters. Like, you have, like, there's some people that if you have employees, you know, whether that's 10 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees, like, those are all people that are like, you need to be building a relationship with that shows that you're not just transactional, like give you a paycheck. Because we don't want people that are just collecting paychecks. We want people to take some ownership and pride and engagement and like, but they have to be cared for in a certain way. And so many people are very, you know, they don't understand, like, as a leader, if you offer like health insurance and 401k, that costs you 20, 30 grand an employee. Nobody's crying when you offer that to them as a perk or benefit to work for the company. It costs you a crap ton as a CEO, CFO, owner of a company. You know, multiply that out, you know, 20, 30 grand with a company with just 100 employees, that's $3 million a year. And all it does is give you table stakes. So one of the things I encourage people to do as leaders is say, what would they never do for themselves, but that would really be meaningful and make their quality of life better, not at work, but at home. Because they're not just working, right? Like Google will do anything to keep you on site. They'll give you all the free caffeine, all the food you want. But like, I remember when we spoke there, I was like, well, what do they do for you at home? And they're like, oh, they don't think about that. They want us here 24/7. So one of the things we offer all of our employees, they can't take the cash. We pay for their house cleaning every other week, every employee. And it costs us like $3,000 per employee per year. And people are like, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, compared to what? Compared to 30 grand if taken for granted?
Compared to what?
I'm like, we offer unlimited babysitter for date nights. Why? Because I realized with my wife would look at the clock and be like, oh, we should go home. It's costing us money to be out. And I'm like, if my wife is thinking this way, I want my employees to be like, if they go through a divorce as an employee, just selfishly, it costs the business money because they're distracted. Their life is getting blown up. And so like, as a leader, there is a way.
Now you're definitely playing in my field.
Yeah.
In my pond.
Right. Like
business.
But the relationships matter and how people show up psychologically, emotionally. And if they feel cared for and taken care of, and nobody, like most people that are probably listening to the show are not running on for profits. We're running a for-profit business, but loving people well and making sure that they feel taken care of has, like, you put $1 in, you get $10 back out if you're playing the long game of these relationships. And that's where I think that people, they're like, oh, we can never do that, or that's wasteful. And I'm like, what's it cost you to replace that employee? If you're honest with yourself, it costs a crap, like whether it's half their salary or twice their salary, or the knowledge that they take with them, or the customers they take with them. There's so many people that are like, John, you're just like this woo-woo guy. And I'm like, no, like I'm actually like, I got straight A's in math. I'm a farmer math guy. Like, I want to be able to understand like basic things. Like, I'm going to put $1 in, and over the next 10 years,
ROI.
Yeah. ROR, return on relationship, destroys Facebook ads and all this other crap that people,
Right.
they'll throw millions of dollars at a Super Bowl ad. And then I'm like, when's the last time you invested that same amount for a 30-second spot in the people that allow you to have a company?
Right.
And it's crickets. When's the last time you invested $7 million into the relationships you already have in your bucket, in your boat? Most of them, it's like, well, we did a $50 Amazon gift card last year at Christmas to our 10,000 employees. I'm like, how do you think that made them feel? You're not worth a gift. Go buy here's a piece of plastic. Go buy your own gifts. For $50, I can't even take my kid to Chick-fil-A for one meal for $50. And that's,
well, you have 4 kids.
Yeah, I know, but regardless, like, people think, oh, I'm generous with my $50 Patagonia vest or whatever. Like, they don't realize what they're spending money to communicate to their most valuable things, their most valuable asset, their relationships. You don't matter.
Okay, let me jump in here because you're absolutely right. So I know you, and I'm working with people. I mean, I'm trying to really develop a relationship based on trust, based on loyalty, right? Like if you're having a hard time, if I'm coaching, like it's a little bit different with corporate, but it's also with entrepreneurs, and it's not different from this perspective. If you're having a hard time breaking through to close a deal, to get to the next level, whatever it is, right? What I'll say is, okay, if you're talking to the influencer, then you have to develop a relationship with who influences the influencer. If they're blocking you, if they're giving you the Heisman, right? So for an employee, and I know I've heard you say this, right? How can you honor the people that they honor? So I will tell people, if you have 4 kids, I have 4 kids, right? Excuse me. If you help someone, again, genuinely, with generosity, authentically, if you help them with their children, they will be eating out of your hand, right? Eating out of your hand. What I've heard you say is that if you give their wife or their husband or their spouse or their partner something that honors them, you all of a sudden have created a real relationship. So talk a little bit about that, right? It's not just giving them the $50 Amazon card. And for a while, with all gifts and birthdays and holidays, it's like everyone was into gift cards, right? And the stores love it because they know, like, I don't know what the number is, 50% of them. I know me, I never have a coupon or a gift card with me when I need it. Never. It's always home. It's always in my car or it's always expired. Which is the whole
breakage rate. The breakage rate is stupid. People, they're going to put them in a desk and forget about them, or they lose them. They get unused. But even if they got used, it's still not like you're in business. You're trying to.
There's no thought.
There's no thought, creativity. Like in business, the difference between a $100,000, million, $10 million deal is like it's millimeters, right? It's like, do I like this person? Does this person like? Is the right person going to open the door? Every day, it's like the NFL. It's a game of inches, right? Like it's all of these little things. And so people are like, they're so dumb and they're so cheap on the things that could actually like connect emotionally with that relationship. Because we know that like, if we like somebody and we trust somebody and we're emotionally connected, we'll justify all the logical stuff. But like, if we don't feel connected to that person, we're not going to run through walls. We're not going to get the deal done. We're not going to like go the extra mile. And so, like, to me, the gift card is like spending money to basically spit in somebody's face. Now, not every single time, but most of the time.
A little harsh. I get it.
But if you think about a company where they want the most out of their employees, they're working at least 2,000 hours a year. 2,000 hours away from their hobbies, their friends, their family, their loved ones, their kids, their pets. Like $50, what is that? Like 5 cents an hour is what I value you at. Like it's insulting. Like I remember a top speaker that we both know went and gave a keynote, and he comped his $30,000 or $40,000 keynote for this guy because it was a big group of CEOs. And the guy hand wrote a note and put a $25 Amazon gift card inside. And that was 15 years ago. He's still talking about it today. He's like, it was the most insulting thing. I comped a $30,000 speaking gig, and he sent me a $25 Amazon card as a token of appreciation. So he literally like burned into this person's mind. I didn't value what you did.
Never again. Never again. Yeah.
Never. Now, guess what? This person has no idea that they did that. They burned a bridge. They thought they were being thoughtful and generous. The handwritten note would have been fine because that's just an acknowledgement of like, but the fact that so there's all of this stuff being done. And so when you asked about like the spouses and stuff, when I'm developing like a relationship plan for somebody, whether it's employees, clients, centers of influence, 80% of the budget is directed not at the influencer, the executive, the CEO, the CFO, the person they think is the decision maker. 80% of our budget is directed towards the inner circle. And I learned this from Paul because he treated the receptionist and the janitor at the same level of respect as he treated the CEO. That's just who he was. It wasn't manipulative. But think about, most people talk about an assistant like a gatekeeper, like somebody to be got around, somebody that
they know everything.
They know everything.
Everything.
All the bodies are buried.
They open up the door or lock it shut.
Right. They're oftentimes doing the work of 2 to 5 people. They're oftentimes underappreciated. They're oftentimes disrespected. They're like all of these things. If you can, like the way that we landed the Orlando Magic as a client wasn't because of the CEO. The CEO was like, great. They wanted to hire us. There was the assistant to the CEO of the Orlando Magic that bragged about us to every division inside the Orlando Magic for 2 years. And then when I came to meet them in person for the first time, they were already a client, but they were a small client. Yeah. Because of her influence, I sent gifts for 3 straight years, every quarter, one to the CEO, not a junior varsity level gift, the exact same gift, hundreds or thousands of dollars. One went to Alex, one went to Cheyenne, back and forth for 3 years, never asked for anything. Guess what? Mm-hmm. She became the internal champion, the sales rep. The reason we landed one of the largest deals ever that we've ever landed in 23 years with an NBA team that normally gets stuff for free. Like NBA teams, NFL teams, think about it. They normally like get stuff for free and you have to pay them hundreds of millions of dollars to use the product. They bought ours at full fee. Why? Not because the CEO. The assistant, Cheyenne, became my sales rep. And by the time I got there, everybody knew my name. And they literally said, John, we've heard about you for 3 years from Cheyenne. We know you're good enough for Alex, the CEO. Can you just show us what you have to purchase? Because we want to buy it. They were pre-sold.
This is
pre-sold.
This is great. This is so important, right? And this trumps people spend a fortune on marketing, and you just did it with the assistant. Okay, so let me go back. I'm going to pivot just a little bit. So you told us about Paul, who's an attorney, who, by the way, are usually not the most progressive, generous people on the planet. Just saying, because I do a lot of work with them with emotional intelligence, and they're so. I'm trying to get them from behind their desk as a conversation. Okay. Tell us about something that people don't know about you, that it's not in your book. They can't Google it. Your friends might not know. Your wife might not know, but an experience that you had that directly and or indirectly influenced your success today. Something you can't Google that people don't know. Everyone's got one.
Yeah. I think there's a number of those things.
Sure. Whatever you want.
Yeah. One of them was getting cut from the like I love basketball. I still play basketball as a 43-year-old. And when I moved
back to the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that was a big deal. To land an NBA team was kind of a dream of mine, and so that happened. Mm-hmm. But I love basketball, and so I consider myself a pretty good basketball player. But in high school, I got cut, and I went out to my car and I cried for an hour because I was like a junior in college or junior in high school.
Oh, so junior, you were supposed to be starting that year.
Yeah, I got cut from the team.
Did you see it coming?
Not getting cut, no.
Sorry.
So I get cut. I go back in an hour later after I sat in my 83 Buick Park Avenue in the parking lot and just like ugly cried, like just, like my life is over kind of a thing. Like your identity's tied up in that. So I cry. I go back into the coach and I said, hey, I know I'm not on the team, but it means a lot to me. And what I'd like to do is just come and practice and play on the practice squad, even though I won't be on the team.
Wow.
And they thought about it for a second and they said, we've never done that before, but sure, we'll let you play on the practice squad. So for that entire season, there's all this chirping and murmuring around the school, right? Like, oh, John's not even on the team and he's showing up, and like, people are going to be haters. By the end of the season, they because of the work ethic and whatever else, they end up putting me on the team just to sit. And I end up making the team as a senior then, because I worked that entire summer, like lost weight and worked out and all this other stuff. It was one of the more embarrassing things that's happened, but it was one of those like kind of crossroad moments for me of like, am I going to be like wallow in my self-pity and give up, or am I going to, and I didn't realize it at the time. I was just like, I'm going to do whatever it freaking takes to get back into.
I was going to say, how did you as a 16, 17-year-old sitting in your car? I don't think the phones were around. So you weren't texting your mommy where, they would swoop in today, which is a whole other conversation. How did you think about it? And quite frankly, how'd you have the balls to do that? That took a lot of courage.
Yeah, I don't know. But I remember other situations coming up after that. Like, I had a similar situation, not similar way. I had the ring to propose to Paul's daughter. And was supposed to she was on a trip to Hawaii for kind of like a retreat. And I was going to fly to Hawaii. I asked her dad's permission. He gave me the blessing, but he's like, wait till she gets back. Cause like, who knows what's going on in Hawaui. So long story short is the relationship.
I wonder if he knew something. I wonder if he knew something, but go ahead.
Maybe. So we end up breaking up. She goes back with her.
Whoa. Wait. Stop right there. Okay. So you asked Paul, you asked the dad. He says, wait till she comes back. All right. So she's back. Come on. You can't fast forward there. She's back.
She's back. But so I'm like, what's the right time? Well, I'm like,
to yourself. You say to yourself.
Yeah. Like I want to do, I don't want to just do, like the first day she's back. I was like trying to figure out when I was going to do it. Cause I thought it was going to be romantic in Hawaii, right? Like, oh, this is going to be great.
Aloha. Yeah.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of hit pause, like, okay, I want to do it at the right time, blah, blah, blah. And it started to become apparent that like she was after that, like there was a disconnect. So maybe Paul did know something. I never really thought about it that way. But there was a disconnect and I was like hard charging. I'd started my business, giftology. It wasn't called giftology at the time, in college with Cutco. I was selling knives. I was like number one in the nation out of millions of reps, all this other stuff. And she was like, why are you pursuing things so hard? She had grown up with access to, things. I was poor. She grew up not poor. Sure. I was very motivated. She was like, she wanted to become a teacher and settle down in her hometown. And just like, she was in chill mode and I was in like, bro, like, just right. Like, and so
ambitious.
I was very ambitious and not that she wasn't ambitious, but she didn't have to work. Like I was paying for college. I was paying for a private university as I'm going to the university and starting a company. And she's like, she didn't have to pay for anything.
Were you taking the MCATs? Like, were you thinking about going to medical school still?
I was undergrad. So I was chemistry, biology. I was doing all of the, the undergrad stuff.
Right. So, and then junior year, you take MCATs.
Yeah. So, but I started the business and I started to see the opportunity and I started to think about like the debt. And I was like, I'm going to put med school on hold and see if this business thing has legs.
Takes off.
And about that same time, I'm thinking seriously about the ring and all that kind of stuff. Well, we ended up breaking up.
Did you ever ask her?
Ring. No, never asked her. So it became obvious that we didn't want the same things. But it was gut wrenching because my mentor was her dad. Like a lot of what I write about in giftology, I witnessed firsthand from Paul. So like, I looked up to him as like I was like literally in my head, I'm like, I want to be him when I'm 60. Like, I remember thinking that like, he's got this, amazing home.
So that's in what, 5 years or no, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, exactly. So I got, I'm still 17 years off that mark, but he had 3 daughters. I had 4, which is weird how like some of the things work out.
Married, still married to his first wife.
Yeah. He's been married for 50 years. Mm-hmm. So So anyway, that was devastating to have the ring and then to watch her go back with her ex-boyfriend from high school. And then I remember going to a wedding where they stood up as first time as a couple together. And it was like one of those like movies where you walk in the back and you see that happen. And I left the wedding once again. It was like I wanted to die, bawl my eyes out. So I've had those moments where like,
how'd you maintain the relationship with the dad, or did you put that on pause for a while? I mean, you can't be that mature.
No. Yeah, I mean, I stayed in touch loosely. I tried to be respectful, and he was like, I mean, it's his, it's his baby girl. Like, there was definitely like he was kind, he was respectful, but there was definitely a distance that was created by both of us. Yeah. But it was also fuel for me to be like, I'm going to do things that you're going to hear about. Like, I'm going to make you wish that you had not. Revenge success. There was an element for about 2 years of at least where I was just pissed. I was angry. I was hurt. And I used that as fuel to be like, you're going to freaking read about me in the papers in a good way, not a bad way. And I realized, eventually that's a horrible fuel. Like right. it fuels it for a while, but it's not, somewhat really not sustainable. What ended up turning it around for me was mentoring a young guy from that area. My business grew because of a partnership with a younger guy that had all the relationships in town. And,
all right, well, hang on 1 second though. I need to know, where is this chick today? Is she, because I know, because of social media, Facebook, don't tell me you don't stalk her every now and then. I know you're incredibly happy married, but let's be real. I want to know. I'm going to get her name and find out where she is.
I have not seen her in a decade, maybe longer.
I wasn't asking if you've seen her. I want to know where she is and what she's doing, because on social media, there's no secrets.
Yeah. So I don't know if she's still teaching. She was a teacher. I don't know if she still is a teacher or not. She's a teacher, couple kids, married the high school sweetheart.
Did she married that guy? She did.
Yeah. She married that guy. And she's down in that area.
She married that guy.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy. At the time, I thought he was the worst dude on the planet, but realistically, I was just hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, that was, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, something like that. It's crazy. It feels like a different lifetime ago.
So pun intended, it really was a gift for you that it didn't work out, because it would have, you would have been suffocated.
Yeah, I think so. I looking back, no question. It was a blessing in disguise. I don't regret, but I also am super grateful for the fact that we dated, because the relationship with Paul that was a relationship that it inspired me, motivated me, opened my eyes to like this whole other way of being and operating. And like, so I'm like incredibly grateful for what took place there. But yeah, at the time it felt like my perfect life, I'm going to do this business and have a perfect father-in-law that I love, because I had a kind of broken relationship with my dad, divorce and a bunch of other things. And so like Paul kind of became like an almost like felt like an interim father figure. Mm-hmm. So it felt like almost like losing a dad as well.
So, I'm going to say something that's probably so politically incorrect. And I just said this to a coaching client yesterday. And I don't think you're supposed to say this, but I believe this to be true. I feel like one of the main issues with the problems in the inner cities, and you're talking to an incredibly independent woman that can hold her own, that raised 4 kids. Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel that one of the problems is that there aren't male mentors, or really there are not fathers. So you have all these children running around, or I'll just say it, boys. The testosterone's raging. It just is during teenage years, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a male figure there. Like, I know when I was 3 of my 4 children are boys, right? So I remember growing when I was raising them. I was never one of these, wait till your father comes home. I think that's ridiculous. But there was a difference when I would say no than when my husband said no. Just two-letter word. It's different. It's heard differently, right? And so I think, to your point, having Paul on so many levels And it's not that your father wasn't there as much as it sounds like it wasn't a strong relationship, but that influenced you in a positive way. And how does that influence the CEO that you are today and the father of girl dad, as they call it now, since Kobe Bryant, right? Girl dad.
Yeah.
You made girl dad popular.
Yeah, no, I think I do think that there were other relationships growing up that I saw. I think I've always been more comfortable with adults, even when I was a kid. Like I've leaned that direction. And
How many kids were in your family? How many siblings did you have?
There's 6 total.
Growing up.
It was a blend.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 4. So I had 4
Where
brothers.
are you on the food chain?
Well, it depends on I have like initially it was my sister and I. I was oldest with my sister and I, and parents got divorced, got remarried, had an older stepbrother who I looked up to, who was like 4 years older than I was, more a friend than a brother. And then they had 3 kids together. And so
all right, but you were top of the pecking order for the most part. You were top of
in many ways. Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, I always sought out older, mentors and coaches, and like I remember one of the guys that was like, it was a dad of one of the kids I played basketball with, was like, someday you're gonna be a politician. Like you're just always building relationships with people that are double your age. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but I've always sought out. Paul was a special one, but to me, I agree with you. I think masculine male, like masculine is supposed to be healthy. They call it toxic masculinity. It's like real masculinity.
Please, that's
toxic.
Ridiculous.
Real masculinity is not toxic. It's protective.
Toxicity is toxicity.
You're right. It's like real masculinity is not that. So, but I agree. Like to me, I show up differently for my family because of, I think, seeing what happens when the dad's not around and when the dad's not engaged as much. And so, and as a leader, like I think, I think caring for your employees and caring outside of what happens just in the 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever they work, like to me, like being a leader means you care about the whole person, not just output in that one little area. So I'm not perfect at it, but I think that we have longevity with our team because of people like Paul have shown me like what it means to be a leader and how to show up for people and how to care about more than just the paycheck. And what do you do to show up for them, to show them that you care beyond the transactional stuff? And there's, that's still a work in progress, but I do think that, that real strong masculine leadership is, you can talk about loving people well and like things that feel like maybe a generation ago were woo woo. You can do that in strength. And I think the best leaders, at least I've been around, like care, they love, they are like sacrificial, they are strong, they are like, they have core beliefs and they show up for people. And so like, to me, like that's what at least I'm aspiring to do and be.
Well, I think you do a great job. I mean, the old leadership, command and control, being replaced now with trust and inspire, right? Like on the one hand, you say, yeah, right? Well, what just blows my mind is Wall Street now is all of a sudden back in the office. Why? Every time they talk about culture, just substitute the word control, because how much mentorship do they really think is going on? They're trying to fix a new habit. There's a new paradigm with an old solution, right? There's a million ways you can create culture, a million. And in terms of like, as someone that works with all different companies, with all the, we call them now, I think Simon Sinek, essential skills, right? The soft skills. Doesn't matter what your business is. Doesn't matter. It's all the relationships, right? And it's maybe 80% is relationships. I think, well, I want to know why you feel you have it right, even though the research shows how important the culture, the caring, the taking care of, all the emotional intelligence, all the stuff I do, right? The research consistently shows how that's above and beyond the ping pong table, right? The $5 gift card. Why do you think so many leaders have it wrong. They
Well,
fail miserably.
Well, I think that I was lucky and fortunate to have somebody that modeled it in real time for me. Paul was that person. And I saw I saw 30 years worth. Like I got to see the tail end of like, if you plant a tree, you plant the acorn and it turns into an oak tree. I got to see the oak tree, and he was continually planting the acorn. So I got to see like, no, there is a law of the harvest, whether you believe in, biblical wisdom and whatever else, like there's different universal principles of like, you reap what you sow. I don't care what religion or faith base you are. Like, there's certain key things there.
Karma, what goes around comes around.
Yeah. Like
it's so
call
true.
it whatever you want to call it. But, as somebody of faith, like to me, that's important. But I got to see somebody that I respected, and I got to see the results. I don't think very many people have somebody that's modeling it for them in real time. What they have modeling for them is the control. They have modeling for them is the micromanagement and the rule with fear. And I think most people, myself included, like oftentimes fear creeps in and fear controls the outcome. And so when you're afraid, what do? You like latch on. I'm going to control this situation. I'm going to control this person, because they are afraid of looking stupid. They're afraid of looking silly. They're afraid of being taken advantage of, failing, of getting fired. All of the so fear takes over. And unless you have somebody, and at least in my case, I think that having somebody that you love, you believe in, that you trust, that models it for you, it can hold your hand for a bit and show you that like this works. I think most people are screwed. Like I think most people, if they're the island by themselves and they don't have anybody else modeling it for them, I think, I think there are people like a Gary Vaynerchuk and others that are like making it cool to talk about empathy. And they're also, they're showing the results. Like, look at what he's built in the last 15 years is a hell of a company, right? Like whether you like some of his hustle videos of the past and whatever else, like the dude is like building an empire.
He knows something. Yeah. He knows something. Yeah.
He knows something. And he's like talking about the soft skills as being the essential skills. And he's talking about like leading with love and taking care of people and respecting people. And then he models it in real time. He's modeling it on social media. Like when people spit hate at him, what does he do? He like kills them with kindness. So, but I don't think that a lot of people have that in direct proximity or close proximity where they can say like, I trust this person. This person's crushing it. I have confidence to overcome the fear and go do it as well. And so hopefully there's enough people like you and, the Camerons of the world, and Garys, and, that are lights to say, no, like, you're going to get punched in the face and you're going to have some failures. Doesn't matter. Like empathy doesn't
life.
There's real life that goes on, but man, it's a lot more fun to build relationships this way and have people that are rowing with you and that have your back. And, to see the seeds turn into oak trees is a beautiful thing. If you can, play the game in decades, not days, it's a wonderful thing.
You want to play chess too. You want to play checkers, right? You want to play chess. Right. All right. I could talk to you. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you forever. I want to respect your time. I do want you to unabashedly promote yourself, but I have one or maybe two more questions for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Imagine, I love to use imagination because, and I had just read this recently, so I love to say this, that Albert Einstein, like the woo-woo stuff, right? Use your imagination. Well, Albert Einstein, I don't think anybody would accuse him of being woo-woo, said he created the theory of relativity. He upended the physics that the world believed at the time by imagining riding alongside a lightning beam. Is that crazy? Like, I just love that. I love that image. And he said imagination is a precursor, a preview to the future. But having said that, that's a little sidebar. I want you to imagine for a moment that there's this huge box in front of you. And everything that you have ever lost in your entire life is in that box. What's the first thing you would reach for and why?
Oh,
it's good, right? I love this question.
Everything I've ever lost.
Animate or inanimate? Yep.
the first thing that came to mind was my parents' marriage.
And why?
I think that was, I think God's used it for goodness, but there's a wound there that I think that set off a trigger of a lot of trauma, that I think I'm still in the process of working through, honestly. It just caused a ripple effect of like so much, pain, and it was really challenging, like growing up with parents that way. And there's this battle that lasted like 20 years over possessions. And I saw my stuff, and my dad went into a mental hospital because of it, and then never fully recovered. And then like, it just was a really, really tough, it's made me very committed to my marriage in a different level, in a different way. So I'm grateful for the things that it's inspired, but I'm also like, that's the first thing that popped into my head was my dad in the marriage. And so in some ways, like I lost it, but I don't even know, like, I don't remember what it was necessarily before it broke or before I lost it. I just,
How old were you?
like 5. I was like 5, but I remember
that's an age when everything should be rainbows and lollipops for a kid.
Yeah. And I don't think, and I remember like I started bedwetting and a bunch of other things like that around that time. Like I started sleepwalking, having nightmares. Like I think maybe a lack of security. I was, internally I was insecure. Externally, I was always smiling and achieving and doing all these things. But internally, I think there was an element of like, because of that father figure element, I think it caused an insecurity and imbalance and uncertainty that rang through and affected everything. So that wasn't expecting to go down memory lane here, Patty, but
well, thank you for being so vulnerable. And I really, if I didn't adore you before, I adore you even more now, because we all have that, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable allows us to trust others, right? And if we don't have trust, we don't have a relationship. So, quite frankly, from my perspective, what's it all about? So, I'll give you an easy one. I'll give you an easy question.
I like the hard ones. It's getting me to think
about. I'm feeling badly. Yeah, I'm feeling badly. What's the one song you can't live without, and why?
The one song?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was easy. Maybe not so much.
There's a song by Elevation Worship called Jireh that I listen to every single week and have for years now, that puts my heart into a positioning of gratitude and confidence about the future. And so I would say that's probably, I have ones that make me cry because it's like my daughters are involved with like the Imagine Dragons Natural. They used to think that it said Nacho Boat. So I usually walk up on stage to that song because it makes me like kind of giggly. But as far as like, if I had to just pick one, like, yeah, Jireh.
Okay. I lied. I have to ask you one more question. What is, I just thought of it. What is the best gift you've ever been gifted?
Ooh. There's different contexts. So Paul believing in me when I sold Cutco, and he bought knives and he gave them to me and said, go gift this to this person that owns this company. And whether they buy or not, tell them Paul wants you to have a piece. So he taught me the idea of like, he believed in me enough to share his social capital and then use his social credibility and capital to help open doors, which as this, green country bumpkin farm kid that was not confident,
it's the halo effect. He gave me the halo effect.
Yeah. So that was like, that's probably the most like, holy crap. Like, I didn't realize at the time what he was doing, but in hindsight, looking back, I was like, whoa, that belief, all of that. As far as like just wow gifts, I'll say one that was recent. There's an artist that paints digitally, like 500,000 strokes pieces of art. And she read Giftology. She's done pieces like for Toby Keith and some of the biggest CEOs are. She's out of Oklahoma.
Didn't he just pass away, Toby Keith?
He just passed away from last week.
I heard he was a great guy, though. Yeah.
She said he was incredible. They were supposed to do another piece together, and his wife was waiting for him to get better for them to do another art piece. So these art pieces are like, imagine a 60-inch plasma on your wall that was hand painted of your family. It's like a Southern gentleman kind of piece. Yeah. So this artist, it's like a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 gift. She gifted me. She flew on her 50th birthday to come to our favorite place in the world on the beach with my 4 daughters, capture all of us walking down. Where's your favorite place in the world?
Atlantic
Beach in North Carolina. Okay. It's some friends of ours who are like adoptive grandparents invite us down. We met them on an airplane 15 years ago, and they've become like literally like grandparents for our kids. So we go down there every year through the summer. And so she flies in videography, pictures, and then paints over the course of like a year. And she just delivered it. It's hanging on our wall now. It is one of the most insane.
Oh my gosh.
Like, here you go. Here's, it's like
goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, for the person who has everything, like,
right.
Yeah. What do? You capture their family in a moment in time. And sort of kind of like right before my daughter is becoming a woman, my youngest is 4, like our 4 girls, our families together walking on the beach. It's just this beautiful piece. It's insane.
The calm before the storms time of a family when you have 4 girls.
Yeah, there is.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. John, thank you so much for that. I really have goosebumps. Okay. I want you to unabashedly brag about yourself. Tell people where they can get your book, where they can learn more about your company, learn more about you. Go.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to go buy the book. What I would say is most people just need some tips to like start thinking differently about how they're building relationships and how they're driving all the results they want in their business, referrals, loyalty, deal flow, access, all that. That if you just avoided the 10 worst gifts to avoid giving, like gift cards and alcohol and food, which most people's entire playbook is on that list. They're like, how did you know what I've been giving the last 35 years? I'm like, because everybody does the same stupid stuff. We're all sheep. We all look around and say, well, they're giving bottles of bourbon and cases of wine. I guess that's the thing I should be giving. That your audience would go to The Giver's Edge with an S, thegiversedge.com, and download the 10 worst gifts. And then we send some of our best strategies and ideas. So you don't have to go buy the book. If you do want to, it's on Amazon. I think it's up to 1,300 reviews. Some people hate the book, but 4 out of 5 people. Oh, we got some 1 and 2 stars. They're like, it's not enough ideas. You're just pitching you're just pitching your agency. Like,
so always hate. Whatever.
Oh, it's a good opportunity to show my daughters, because I'll get some hate mail. And one of them was from an attorney, like, this is the worst, da da da. And my daughters were like, you need to send Kevin this message and this message. And I said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna kill him with kindness. I'm gonna say, I wrote him a note and said, hey, let me know what your Venmo account is so I can refund you the cost of the book, and then let me know the book that you want to read next, and I'll send you that book. They're like, why would you do that? I'm like, because there's a troll, and like, he's this law firm owner. First off, I'm like, why did he took the time to write when he's billed per hour, $1,000 an hour, whatever it is, $500 an hour? I'm like, what a waste of energy and resources. But I'm like, I'm going to take the high road.
Kill him with kindness.
Kill him with kindness. And for like a month, they're like, did you hear from Kevin? I'm like, I'm never going to hear from Kevin, because he feels like a dumb douchebag, because he just completely like ripped me apart over a book. And I just offered to buy him his next book. He's going away. Like, he's tail between his legs. And if he did ask, like, I have bought books for people where they complained about it, and I'll buy them their next book if they, 1 out of 100 lets you do that. But they go on Amazon, buy the book. They go on Instagram. Really, 99 people out of 100 don't need an agency to do this for them. Like they can make their own relationship list. They can go take care of their one or two employees or clients or key relationships. Like I give away in the book, our whole playbook, our whole recipe on how to do this. Because my hope is that millions of leaders will go do this on their own. Like they'll go be more generous with their relationships. They'll grow their companies, and then they'll be more generous in their other parts of their life. And, you get a million leaders to be more generous and more thoughtful and more empathetic. That could impact 1 billion people based upon employees and suppliers and clients. But there's 1 out of 100, people that are scaling their business. They need help. They know how to scale their thoughtfulness. They have 100 employees. They have 1,000 clients. And that's really where our agency helps them, not only think about it and strategize, but then do it for them. And so, we got $5 million companies that are growing all the way to Fortune 50 companies that are clients that we're helping think about this strategically, about how to build relationships and drive revenue and do it in the right way. So that's it.
Love it. I love it. And the intentionality I'm struck by, right? You're saying strategic, but it's so intentional. And most people, never mind giving, most people don't do intentional. They might do automatic, but that's so far from intentional.
Yeah. You're right. And people feel that when they feel your intentions, they can feel the intentions behind the gift. They can read between the lines and tell if you're trying to like pull one over on them or if you're like just, doing radical generosity. And obviously we hope good things happen when we are that way. But yeah, the intention part of it is part of the magic.
Huge, huge. John, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I hope you had a good time too.
Oh, I've done over 300 interviews from New York Times down. You asked me some questions I've never been asked before. So thank you for keeping it fresh and new and interesting. So it was awesome.
You're welcome. I don't think there's been a time I haven't been told that, but I hate to lead with that because it will be that one time like, oh, all right. Okay. All righty. So thank you, John. I encourage everybody, go follow John. Learn what he is sharing with the world on giving gifts. We're recording this now. It's the month of February. We just had Valentine's Day. We know everybody gave chocolates and booze, probably 2 things you don't give. But in the summertime, if you give a great gift that nobody's expecting, it's intentional, it's strategic, and you've just differentiated yourself from the crowd. So having said that, thank you so much for tuning in. And like I promised, I knew you would love this. So like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, be well.